Now, I am not Rhett Butler. For anyone who's under the age of 50, Rhett Butler is the character from Gone with the Wind, the classic book, and 1939 film. I'm not him, but if I was him, would I be saying, frankly, Madeira, I don't give a damn? Or would I be saying, you put the fun into Fun Chol? Let's find out.
Funchal is, of course, the capital of the beautiful island of Madeira, which is part of Portugal. Got to explain my jokes there is never a good sign. Now, Madeira is a bit like the Azores, and it's a place I've overlooked. I've overlooked it for nearly all my life, and I can't believe how amazing this place is. So, these are my top tips on visiting Madeira, some of the highs, some of the lows, and everything in between. Madeira is a speck in the Atlantic just off the coast of Morocco. You're looking at between 3 and a 4 hour flight from the UK, depending on where you are, and the tailwinds, of course. It is located just below, well, not just below, there's quite a few miles in between them, but between the Azores, another set of Portuguese islands, and the Canaries. So you'll see it's actually considerably closer to Morocco than it is Portugal. Madeira Airport is famous for being quite a tricky little blighter when it comes to landing. Yeah, a combination of the tailwinds, and historically they had a very short runway, which they have extended, but you won't see because I didn't take a full video of it landing. As you're coming in, you're landing right by the sea, so it can get quite hairy. And I've had a few stories from people including Jerry at Top Chauffeur, who told me about a rather unpleasant and lengthy and treacherous journey where they had to go all the way back to the UK. So it's not unheard of for people to have to abort landings, go back to mainland Portugal, maybe go to the Azores, maybe go all the way back to London or wherever you're flying from. And my sincere apologies to Jerry in case I've triggered any PTSD over that experience. Funchal Airport is quite a modest facility by all accounts. You are not going to get all the red carpet treatment. In fact, you are going to have to walk off the plane and across the tarmac. Once again, Jerry, I don't walk on tarmac for anybody. Anyway, so we walked across the tarmac, grumbling to ourselves, and we go straight into the arrivals area. This is a small space. Now, I'm actually also not Terry from Travelly Man, who's been following this EU electronic entry and exit system (EES) thing. And doing a great job on it. I'll put a link into his channel so you can check out all that information there. But obviously, the EU are bringing in some new entry and exit system where you have to scan your fingerprints and put all those details in and so on. At this point, the machines were not operational, so who knows how long they will take. There seems to be a reasonable amount, so it's hard to judge just how busy or not busy it could be. Certainly, if you've got kiddie winkies and some of the old people going through, and they can be a bit doddery or a bit slow. One thing I allowed a slight chuckle to myself was the fact that there was a queue to use the EU passport gates and none for the UK one, so we went straight through. One aspect I did like about this airport was they actually gave you an estimated time of arrival for your bags. Obviously, it's not the biggest airport, so that's not that difficult to do. But I appreciate those things because it does give you a sense of timing. And in fact, the bags actually started coming out early, so that was great. Well, it wasn't great, was it? It wasn't great because I tell you what the most useful thing is. I find, and let me know if you agree. The priority tags that you get for flying business or first with British Airways never work. My bag never comes out. So despite being a priority, despite being supposedly a gold member, mine comes out. All right, the bloody what's the point anyway? You get the idea. The bags will come out, and then you are free to go. A couple of things you need to be aware of when departing through Madeira and through this Funchal airport. Those blasted EES machines are just before the passport control. There may be something of a logjam because when we went through, there were only two passport booths open, one for EU and one for UK. I imagine, again, coming out, that could be somewhat of an issue. There is also a lounge of sorts, which, if you're British Airways executive club, nah, British Airways Club silver or gold member, you can access one of the smallest, diddiest ones that I've been in. Not quite as tiny as Cancun, but it got quite busy and there probably wasn't enough space. So get there early if you do. Head straight to the lounge. A few drinks, sandwiches, snacks, basic stuff, really. I was feeling somewhat lazy, lethargic, bone idle about this holiday, so I booked a private taxi transfer. You're looking about 20 minutes from the airport to Funchal city itself. There are public transport. I think there's a bus that runs there, but maybe a taxi is good. Uber was, I think, it's about €20 or so. Easy options. Your sport for choice when it comes to hotels. There is a section over to the west hand side of the main port area where there's an abundance of hotels and restaurants and all that. And also, if you go to Funchal itself, very pretty city. I got some nice, somewhat colonial vibes, nice gardens, nice aesthetic. They have a few museums, shops, all that kind of jazz. You can get the cable car up the mountain if you so desire. And there's this weird thing that you can get like a strange sled on wheels down, and it looked ridiculously dangerous. So it was definitely a no from me. Of course, Cristiano Ronaldo, the famous footballer, is from Madeira, and you can visit his own museum, which is famous for this rather horrible statue of him, where people seem to like to hold his arms and touch his crotch. Which is funny because Ronaldo is better known for his ball control than his tackle. All in all, though, Funchal is a lovely little city. You can easily have a day or two wandering around, taking in the sights. Plenty of restaurants. Walk down to the harbour side along there. Absolutely beautiful. And it was also very pleasant compared to our last two European city visits, which were Bucharest and Athens. It was a delight to be in somewhere that didn't have graffiti and grime and lots of grubby, horrible nastiness around it. So well done, the people of Funchal, for keeping your city clean. A final point, if you are going to be based around the city, obviously Madeira is on the route for those luxury cruise liners. So you will no doubt find there will be a lot of cruise ships docked. There were at least five, I think, came in during the week we were there. Some of them, like this one, were absolute beasts. Be aware because it can get quite busy on those cruise docking days. Likewise, if you're going on trips or trying to explore, things can get pretty hectic. Getting around Madeira, you are mainly limited to public transport through buses and private taxis. We did 2 day tours, and this is a fantastic option for you in terms of getting out there, getting off the beaten track, and seeing some different things. I will do a separate video on the day trips because it's that impressive, but I'll quickly just show you some of the images, some of the breathtaking vistas and scenery that we experienced. Madeira is almost a perfect holiday destination for everyone. It packs so many different things into such a small island. I literally, so driving through, and hang on, this could be frigging the Amazon rainforest. We're driving under waterfalls in this lush green environment. You can then be transported to a wistful, magical forest, almost like a fairy tale with its gentle mist, just a few minutes later. You can then go to the coastline, the volcanic coastline, very prominent, very dramatic. You can go for a dip in the sea. You can go up into the mountains. The mountains it reminded me very much of sort of Thailand, Vietnam, with the way because they'd done the farming horizontally. You have these sort of stacks. And I realise my narration's not quite in sync with the pictures here, so please just take this as a glob of glorious greatness. You can also then go to there's this amazing, almost like an English meadow, very sort of gentle hills and these bizarre but brilliant trees, where the winds had been they sort of grown up and twisted and mangled and created very unique characters. There's no need to venture all the way to the Caribbean to try some rum because they have rum here. Yes, they have sugarcane and they have rum factories, they have vineyards. Some of the day trips do stop at the vineyards and the rum factory, so a word of caution is not to overdo it at these places. Just a little sample is what you need, because having a few too many cheeky ones well, before going to a walk along a cliff edge to see the dramatic view and the dramatic drop, you don't want to be taking a selfie, have a slip, and all ends in tears and tragedy. While there are not many beaches in Madeira, you will find, certainly on the north side of the island, plenty of swimming spots where you can go into these natural pools, natural rock pools into the sea and splash around and have a good time. And if anyone remembers my review of the Doubletree by Hilton at Ras Al Khaimah in the UAE, no, I'm still waiting for the phone call to be the next James Bond. And to top it off, you can also go dolphin and whale watching. Ah, but Tone, you ask, what about driving?
I am not a driver. However, as a designated drinker, I would put a big warning out for even the most accomplished drivers that this place is very tricky when it comes to driving.
Driving around on our day trips with experienced drivers, often in 4x4 Land Rovers, was pretty hairy as it was. And I just can't imagine anyone that doesn't have that huge level of confidence and an amazing grasp of manual to negotiate many of these roads. It is super hilly, a lot of the roads. Some of them are very dangerous, very dodgy, whether it's either next to a sheer cliff edge, whether it's very windy, very narrow. So if you do want to be safe, please don't drive or just lay by the pool and relax. If you do have any back or neck issues or a slightly delicate of frame, be careful about choosing these 4x4 off roads because they are pretty brutal. I was bruised afterwards, but I had a good time.
Of course, as a small island in the middle of the Atlantic, the weather can be unpredictable in Madeira. We've been quite lucky, it's been very pleasant, if a bit cloudy, but then last night in came the rain, and it looks like it's going to rain all day long. So, a few pointers would be to obviously be prepared, make sure you have some waterproofs to keep the wet away. In addition, the diversity of the place in terms of the region. So if you're going out on a boat, going up into the mountains, it can get chilly, it can get warm. The clouds quite low here, so it can actually get quite cold before you get to the clouds, through the clouds, and then it's glorious sunshine. So make sure you pack adequate, suitable clothes so you don't end up too cold, too hot, too wet. In terms of currency, obviously the euro is dominant here in Madeira. One thing you should be aware of is that it does appear that cash remains king. So don't get me wrong, they do accept card in a lot of places, but I get the impression they want your cash over your contactless payment. So don't be called out and not bring any cash and suddenly like, oh, hang on,
If you are paying by card, be aware that nearly everywhere will give you the choice to pay in euros or convert to Great British pounds. You always want to pay in the local currency because you never quite know what the exchange rate's going to be and who's going to potentially take a few pennies or pounds here and there in commission.
When it comes to food and drink, you have a fairly basic but decent selection of food, and the prices can be a little bit variable.
If you hunt out some of the taberna tavern type eateries on some of the side streets in Funchal, you'll find some pretty reasonable prices on good food and especially wine. Going to more of those bigger restaurants, certainly on the main road and those hotels, you will be paying considerably more. So I'm looking at maybe you might get about 15 euros or something for a main course, 20 euros or even less sometimes for a decent bottle of wine. Those are all absolute winners. In terms of the sort of food you can expect, very hearty, basic stuff, but basic's good. Simple is good. Lots of chicken and meat. Very competitively priced steak, actually. A lot of the steak was not too dissimilar price to, say, pork or chicken. So you may pick up a bargain there. The typical dishes are the limpets, which weird. They're weird. They're sort of like mussels and whelks and somewhere in between. I like them, but they were strange. There is also obviously the big skewers. They're very famous for the skewers and the poncho, which is the rum cocktail. So you will be well fed with some pretty decent, honest food. Oh, and how could I forget? Oh my god, I forgot. One thing you'll get practically every meal, or at least get offered every meal, is this. That's right, you know what it is, garlic bread. I am not Peter Kay. So unfortunately, I can't make squillions of pounds and get millions of followers simply by saying a starter in a generic funny accent and then give loads of rather lazy, lame anecdotes about nostalgic things when we were kids. At least I don't think. Maybe I could. Maybe that's what I could do to hit the big time.
Oh my god, do you remember going out for dinner as a child? I do. We went out once a year and we went to our local pub and we had a choice for starters, didn't we? We had prawn cocktail, half a grapefruit, and a glass of orange juice. A glass of orange juice is not a starter, is it? It's breakfast. I mean, you don't go to some cordon bleu restaurant and say, what do you want for a starter, the foie gras or the sugar puffs? What are you like? And also, I remember as a kid, do you remember when your nana, she'd send you your birthday card, wouldn't she? She'd send you your birthday card and she'd sellotape the coins into the birthday card. Nana, what are you like? Why are you doing that? She would say, well, the postman, right, the postman, he may steal the money, he might steal the coins. I said, firstly, Nan, women can be postmen as well. Don't you know that? And secondly, they're thieves. They can steal the coins anyway. It's not like they need to film it.
No, I'm not bitter at Peter Kay's success. Fair play to him. I'm just going to walk a different comedy line to him, a considerably less successful one. Anyway, where were we? Food. Oh, did the food, so let's talk about the drink. As I mentioned, wine is cheap and plentiful here, so you're not going to go wanting or in need of any vin or vino or whatever it is. You have rum. They do local rum, which is good. There's a fairly good beer scene. Some of the sort of lagers are fine, but we found a few places that do good craft beers actually. Quite strong, quite expensive, certainly compared to the price of wine, but you will be not spoilt for choice, but you'll have a good selection. Oh, and of course, last but by no means least, everyone speaks English. Nearly. Beyond the practicalities, Madeira is a stunning place. Absolutely breathtaking. I'm so just frustrated that I took so long to actually visit, but also glad I finally got to see its splendor. There is everything you need: rainforests, coastline, hiking, 4x4 driving, sunshine, culture, food, everything you could possibly want from a holiday. If you would like to see how we actually got to Madeira on our British Airways Club Europe business class flights from Gatwick, you can always check out this video here.